bigger schools that could give them loads of computer points, but also a lot of trouble. Because the first one was against LeBray, the Trumbull County League champion. And the Vikings had just been upset by Newton Falls, who would be Wyndham's final opponent. Now their perfect season disappeared at that little field in a battle with the Titans as they fought to an 8-8 tie with LeBray. They were lucky to escape with that, scoring only when Tim Hill took a punt on his own 16 and proceeded to run into the back of his own blockers. As Hill remembers it, I was going down and Ed Hinkle grabbed my jersey and pulled me back upright again. 84 yards later, Hill hit the end zone with Wyndham's only touchdown of the night. And it took a fourth quarter safety from Tom Denver and Rob Garrett to nail down the tie. But that tie gave them the computer points to earn the second spot in the computer ranking, behind defending state champion Middletown Fenwick. Just get through Newton Falls in one piece, hopefully with a win to make it an undefeated season, and then the Bombers were going where no Portage County team had ever been before, the playoffs, the Final Four in the state of Ohio. Once again, the defense rose to the challenge after repeated special team errors, like muffed punts on the 8-yard line. As Parrish said after the 14-12 win over the Tigers, I told you in August that defense was the name of the game. When Jimmy Christopher picked up that fumble and ran 40 yards with it to end the game, that proved it. As soon as the state announced that Windham would be playing parochial school power Fremont St. Joseph at windswept Donald Stadium in Findlay, 150 miles from Windham, the longest trip of any playoff team, Claire Little began selling tickets for a chartered fan bus at his barbershop on North Main Street. The Bombers were the only public school in the playoffs that year. They carried a lot of dreams and 60 years of Windham football history on their teenage shoulders. During the week of preparation, the Record Courier announced that a stunning 7 Bombers had made first-team All-PCL. Garrett, Tricino, Rice, Hagans, Christopher, and Lyons. And David Flagle made history by being chosen first team on both offense and defense. Another 5 boys, Root, Clark, Gearhart, McCoy, and Marquette, made the runner-up team. And the Bombers finished 5th in the state of Ohio in the UTI ranking. And David Flagle was chosen the Defensive Player of the Year in Ohio by the Associated Press. Now the papers buzzed with preview articles about St. Joseph running back Joe Dyer, who had averaged nearly 200 rushing yards per game. Stan Parrish and his coaches had scouted St. Joseph, and they thought their boys were ready for them. There were tons of distractions during the week. Parrish had to go to Columbus to pick up the game ticket. The Warren Tribune-Chronicle, which usually treated Windham like an unwashed stepchild, sent out photographers that constantly interrupted practice. Ken Jacobs and Ed Hermowitz weren't going to let the team travel on regular buses. They rented the most modern commercial buses they could get on short notice, using travel expenses that the state supplied. And win or lose, they wouldn't have to trek home in the middle of the night after the game. They were going to stay in a Findlay hotel. So on Friday, November 15th, 1974, after a breakfast at the school, the Windham Bombers got the send-off that they deserved. The police and fire department led the buses on a lap through the streets of the town, sirens blaring. Every player on the team remembers it to this day. Parrish set the mood on the trip out to Findlay. You're representing your town and Portage County tonight. This is history. You're the first to ever do this. I want you to play your hearts out, but whatever happens, you'll remember this for the rest of your lives. The one thing Parrish couldn't prepare them for was the intense cold. an Arctic refrigerator in those days before every player wore gloves and Under Armour could make a freezer seem cozy. It was a battle of the trenches. The Bombers prepared for Geyer, but the Crimson Streaks were equally prepared for Barry Lyons. In the first half, Fremont ran 32 plays to only 16 for Windham. On that frozen tundra, Fremont quarterback Greg Kunz completed only one pass all night, but it was for a touchdown, something that would be very dear that evening. Despite 2 punt blocks by Rob Garrett, the Bombers could not get moving. Maybe it was because Iron Man Mike Higgins had gotten knocked out of the game with a concussion. Completely shut down by the slanting Fremont defense that seemed to play right into Wyndham's rushing tendencies, Flagle got Wyndham's only first down of the evening on a gorgeous pass to Bill Root, who flew to the Fremont 7-yard line, only to be pulled down from behind, something that his teammates have never let him forget. The Bombers couldn't punch it in. That's what the game ended. A 6-0 loss. After the game, Flagle, who had every right to be sad after such a tragic loss, showed the maturity to put the game in perspective. He understood that the backs got all the glory, but it took a whole team to get them there. It sure wasn't the Lions' fault, he said. They've done one heck of a job all year. We wouldn't have been here without them. The Beacon Journal and the Record Courier both carried game coverage articles. The Record Courier, though, had a bonus article following the game stats. It talked about how Stan Parrish had resigned as the Windham head coach after that game. As shocking as it was, Stan's resignation was a late season decision, one that he was going to make no matter how far Windham went in the playoffs. Purdue University had been pursuing Barry Lyons, and in conversations with their recruiter, Parrish picked up on hints that if Barry came to West Lafayette, Indiana, there might just be a graduate assistantship in it for his coach. Now, Stan Parrish was a professional coach. He'd always aspired to go as far as he could in his chosen field. He'd been at Windham 6 years, still coaching track, still coaching 8th grade basketball, in addition to being the head football coach. It was time for him to move onward and upward, taking the 1967 Windham homecoming queen, Ruth Purdy, with him. It was a course that would take him all over the United States. After Purdue, he moved on to Wabash College, where he led the Division III Little Giants to an incredible 42-3 record, which earned him a spot in the Wabash Hall of Fame. After another stop at Purdue as an assistant coach, he went on to head coaching positions at Marshall University, where he had the first winning season in 20 years, and Kansas State. 5 years as an assistant at Rutgers in New Jersey landed him a coveted position at the University of Michigan, where he mentored quarterbacks Tom Brady, Brian Grease, and Drew Henson. His success there took him to the pinnacle of coaching, the National Football League, where he won his Super Bowl ring with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The man who once thought that the Wyndham-Garfield game was a Super Bowl that actually arrived there. After Tampa Bay came 5 years at Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana, including 2 years as the head coach. And in 2010, he left coaching for good. Except that a coach never really gives him a lot of his blood. Stan volunteers as a coach for the Siena Heights Saints in Adrian, Michigan, a tiny college which fielded its first team the year he arrived. And he still loves Windham, Ohio, and those boys that gave him 120%. Some of the coaching staff stayed with new head coach Barry Shadd, who eventually became a principal at Little Miami High School in southern Ohio. Most of them stayed in coaching with various degrees of success. Jim Urkashevsky became a school superintendent in Grafton, Ohio, and Bruce Rivelin is a longtime Portage County political leader. Even Marty Hill accomplished a few things. After that season, the boys drifted away to other things. Some disappeared without a trace. Some stayed in town, like Tom Little, Hal Clark, Tom Denver, Ed Hinkle, Rob Garrett, and Dave Gearhart, who prepares the Bombers of tomorrow as the coordinator of the youth football league.
Senator John Tricino is a pharmacist in Findlay,
where he played his last high school football game. Tim Hill married homecoming queen Laura Sabula and lives in Fairmont, West Virginia, where he's been a sales rep for John Deere for over 30 years. His brother Jody, who was the skinniest 6'5" fullback you could ever see, who later became a first-team All-Stater in basketball, is an ordained minister in Deerfield. Mike McCoy has worked for Diebold in Canton his entire life and is in charge of their education division, teaching 5,000 people a year about their ATM software. And he's very proud that he's about to receive his own college degree. Now, some of the boys went on to play college football. Bill Rice played for 1 year at Youngstown before transferring to Kent State to get his degree in chemistry. He's spent the rest of his life working in laboratories, currently for the Aeroco company in Solon. Bill Root played some college ball at Heidelberg, and Mike Higgins played at Heidelberg too, before he began a career in coaching and teaching that brought him back to Windham for a few seasons and to Garfield as their head coach and athletic director. Barry Lyons took Stan Parrish with him to Purdue. And after coming home, began a career in law enforcement, starting as a Windham cop, and he's still at it as a detective for the Portage County Sheriff's Department. Rob Garrett was one of several Bomber players who ended up on the University of Akron team. Dave Flagle also starred for the Zips for 4 years. He eventually joined Parrish on his staff at both Marshall and Kansas State before returning to Ohio for a high school coaching and athletic director career. Dave is currently on the staff at Revere High School. And Jim Christopher, a year behind his fellow lineman, also played 4 years at the University of Akron. He coached at Akron after he graduated and then moved on to become the head coach at North Union High School in Richwood, Ohio in 1984. In November 1987, just after the end of the football season, Jim developed a pulmonary embolism and suddenly, tragically passed away. He never got to see his son Andrew graduate from the United States Naval Academy and enter training as a fighter pilot. Several other teammates also died much too young. Marquette, that Argo's little running back, passed away 4 years ago. Dave Denver, Dave Graham, Ken McLean, and Dennis Dean have also left us over the years. And Jim Verner, the quintessential Windham Bomber, who played for Leo Cott in the 1950s and never did take off the black and gold, passed away less than 2 years ago. Somewhere, Jim's still coaching. So that's it. Since my topic tonight was announced, I've got emails saying the 1953 team was there. 1986 PCL champs were just as good. Maybe. But for tonight at least, those 1974 boys, they're the best that ever wore the team. They're the greatest.